Tune into news across the galaxy where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
What's up, fellow G's? Welcome once again to the MidWeek show with news across the galaxy. I'm your host, as always, Edgar Zuniga. We got Bryant on the ones and twos. What's up, Bryant? Well, everyone, we have a hard-fought loss to Club Herediano in the first leg of their round of 16 matchup in the Concacaf Champions Cup. LA Galaxy have now lost their first three competitive matches of 2025. People are pulling out the pitchforks and torches already. Everyone's having like a existential meltdown online. Hey, relax. Yeah, there are injuries aplenty, and the club has had to pull at least one player from Ventura County FC to bolster the roster. And you know what? After roughly 4,000 miles in flight from Vancouver to Heredia and back to Los Angeles, can LA Galaxy shift their focus for their Sunday night soccer matchup against a visiting St. Louis City SC, who is salivating this encounter with Galaxy as they also seek their first win of the season? Can Galaxy do it? Well, to help us look at this match from every which way possible, let's welcome a good friend of the show, our good buddy, all the way from the Lou. It's our buddy, Matt Big Bird Baker. What's up, Matt?
What's up, Edgar?
Thank you for still letting me call you that, not coming over here and choking me out, man.
One day you'll have to tell me what that actually means, because I'm still lost.
Me too. that's the beauty of it. And if anybody's wondering why my voice is gone, I was at the Deftones show last night, which was awesome, and it was a good escape. It's been a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, and I might have told some of you about it, but hopefully things will be better. Here now, the last week and a half has been pretty difficult. Very emotional roller coaster for me and my family, but things are looking up right now. But let's focus on this game. Matt, like I said, once again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate having you here at Flyover Footy. You and Phil have been amazing, with us. Maybe one day we can get Santi on here as well. So tell us, after such a difficult sophomore season, what has St. Louis City done to get back to their early success?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Edgar. It was a rough 2024 to say the least for St. Louis. Sophomore slump was real, and it wiped away a whole lot of excitement in the fan base. The changes that they made in the offseason are pretty seismic. The formation has shifted entirely. They still call it the same pressing type system, but the Olaf Melberg way of implementing that has vastly changed. Olaf Melberg is our new head coach. He comes from Sweden. He's got I would say, limited amount of first-team success, or at least first division success in his career. So he's kind of on the upswing of his career, looking to take an MLS side and, make a name for himself just as much as he is trying to get St. Louis back to their year one success. And the one thing that has not changed with St. Louis has been personnel since the end of 2024. There's a lot of roster carryover that carries from the success that St. Louis had at the end of the year. So they had a fairly good end to 2024 under interim head coach John Hackworth, who is our technical director as well. So he's got a lot of institutional knowledge of the organization. We brought on a bunch of new guys, some from Germany, some otherwise. Marcel Hartl, Cedric Toyshirt, Simon Betcher, Jonas Horn. Those guys, along with Henry Kessler in the Tim Parker trade last year, they're all still here with St. Louis, and they're all big pieces of our starting 11, more or less. But the way Olaf Melberg has implemented this new system is going away from a 4-2-3-1 that St. Louis had been so often employing, kind of dropping away even from the heavy press that we knew St. Louis liked, that borrowed from the New York Red Bulls system mostly. And they've kind of dropped into this mid-block sort of scheme where they're still aggressive in the press, but if it doesn't work out, they're not going to continue with it. They're not going to go all out chasing after the ball. They'll drop into a more defined, not conservative, but just more respectful approach in the mid block. But the biggest change, I would say, is the employment of wing backs. The The overall personnel might not have changed, but the way that they're being employed on the field has. St. Louis now operates in a 3 center back look with wing backs. They mostly look like a 3-4-1-2, where they have 2 strikers and the center attacking mid is Marcel Hartl. The way this has looked in the first 2 games has been kind of wild to think through. So it's hard to gauge so far, and I'm sure we're going to get into those first 2 games, but it's hard to gauge coming into this season how this 3-4-1-2 is really going to look, especially after the first 2 games only. And I think there's just a lot of excitement in the change that this offers, because after last season, the last thing I think the fans want in St. Louis is to retread the same exact thing that failed so systematically last year. So along with health, which we didn't have in 2024, the new formation, new head coach, and a full season with all these new players are some of the things that St. Louis fans are most hyped about.
I wish I could give you like a really good assessment, like you just did, of what LA Galaxy has to offer this season. But there have been so many moving parts. There have been so many personnel movements that, whereas at the end of last season, LA Galaxy had a very defined identity to their club, a very defined way in which they would approach matches and how they would defend and how they would attack. Right now, there are so many missing pieces, so many people that moved around, so many new people in the fold, that the team is still trying to figure things out themselves. I'm sure that's why Greg Bandy gets paid, the bucks, right, to be the manager and figure these things out. I'm sure he's sitting there right now looking at a spreadsheet and looking at this Gantt charts and all kinds of stuff, trying to figure things out. Because my goodness, like I try to think about it and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty nuts. Um, Another thing I noticed that, because I pay very close attention to the other pods across the league, is that it seems like there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of shakeups across the league this offseason, more than I don't know if it's just me, but it seemed more noticeable this offseason than others, where some teams saw what LA Galaxy did, where they had a very difficult time for the last few seasons. They made a few changes. They brought in some players that had an impact, and then they caught fire and won the cup. And then I remember listening to the guys from Scarves and Spikes from Atlanta, and they said maybe we can emulate the same thing LA Galaxy did by making some big acquisitions. And then you look at them now, and they're doing well. I mean, they had that loss against Charlotte over the weekend, but they're set up to be good this season. Charlotte did the same. They brought in some big names. San Jose brought in Bruce. They brought in some big names as well. And I was just like, wow, there's a lot of movement across the league, especially now with the new roster rules, how you could transfer players within the league. Um, is it just me, Matt, or did you notice something similar?
Yeah, I mean, St. Louis has always in the past 2 years, has been a kind of a lower spending team. So the thing that we've been able to do over the past, I would say, year is continue to grow from that expansion side. In a team that's not going to splash the cash, we've grown the amount of TAM players. The one kind of interesting thing when MLS released these roster club profiles going into this season is we only have 2 designated players now. We bought down Roman Berkey. He's now a TAM level player. So they're kind of evolving in how we're building the roster. But we haven't taken advantage of some of these MLS new mechanisms that some of the other teams have, like cash for trades type thing, for instance. To me, when you look at the league, the cash for trades is the biggest thing that's changed. And it's allowed a lot of the better players in MLS to stay in MLS. Jack McGlynn's a good example where he had offers from England and Italy, but instead the Houston Dynamo outbid those teams and Philadelphia ended up trading him over there. You guys had the Dejan Joveljic cash for trade thing to SKC. That's a massive thing that is happening in MLS. St. Louis hasn't taken advantage of it, but we are clamoring for more of those types of things. And I think as this year evolves, as we go into the summer transfer window, more teams are going to start to take advantage of those kinds of things. And I like the fact that MLS teams can change the way that they're building their roster twice a year. So whatever you're locked into at the beginning of the year, you can kind of change during the summer window, going from that U22 model to a DP or however you need to do to have flexibility. It seems like MLS is giving their teams more of that flexibility in how to craft their roster that's less top heavy than it used to be.
Yeah, another big name that we saw was Evander. He left Portland, and he was also part of that new mechanism that we saw, like the cash for trades, which one of the podcasters out here in LA called it. There's GAM, there's TAM. He called it RAM, which is real money, right?
Real
So
allocation money. I like it.
yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, so, what are some of you mentioned some of the key additions and departures? What are some names that LA Galaxy fans should look for for Sunday's match that you could be like, oh, you got to watch out for this fella?
Yeah, thankfully we didn't have a lot of turnover from the end of last season. And that's been one of the themes for St. Louis is what we looked like at the end of last season as far as personnel is what we come into this season with. I would argue that probably the only notable loss or departure that we had was Indiana Vasilev. And he left us right at the beginning of this season, just a couple of days before we kicked off against Colorado Rapids. He ended up being traded over to the Philadelphia Union. Bradley Carnell is their manager. He was Indiana Vasilev's coach with St. Louis City. So he's kind of reuniting over there. That's the really big departure. And Indy was a big piece of the St. Louis City puzzle. He was one of the players who had logged the most minutes, most games. So he's a departure. But the arrivals for City are more of those players that are tailor-made for this system. Conrad Wallem has arrived on loan from Slavia Prague. He's a left wing back who can also play any of the midfield positions. He got his first start against San Diego this past week. He's a name to watch out for because he kind of is a missing piece in this entire wing back system, the three center backs and the wing backs. We arguably don't have a true left wing back outside of Conrad Wallem or our current left center back, Giannis Horn. He played left wing back in the first game. So that is a position and a player to watch for, Conrad Wallem. Timo Baumgartel is the only other main notable addition to St. Louis that we didn't have at the end of last season, and he hasn't featured yet. He's had an illness that he's been dealing with, but he's also looking to get just his fitness back. He went quite a while coming over. He was a free agent before he came to St. Louis, but before being a free agent, he was with Schalke in the Bundesliga or two Bundesliga lately. And he kind of fell out of favor, had some interactions with the head coach. Depending on reports that you read, he's kind of an outspoken player. He had his own health issues in the past. So he made quite a name in the Bundesliga, dealt with a cancer issue. I mean, this guy's been through the ringers, but by all indications, he's a really good ball controlling center back. And we don't have very many of those with St. Louis. And one of the big changes that accompanies the three center back look and the wing back look for St. Louis is a willingness, a desire to be better on the ball. Something that the Bradley Carnell St. Louis City, the one that played the Galaxy 4 times, just didn't do. When I was looking and doing our preview for Flyover, we noted that in all 4 of the previous matchups between the Galaxy and St. Louis, the Galaxy had greater than 50% possession in every single one of those games. And I don't know that you're going to see that exact same kind of matchup in this game because the Olaf Melberg style kind of wants to play with the ball more, and they want to be more intentional with their build-up, play the ball out of the back a little bit more. And we're seeing in these first 2 games, the first game especially, second game with St. Louis and San Diego is kind of I throw that out a little bit because San Diego's press, St. Louis just did not handle that at all well. Not exactly expecting the Galaxy to press to that level. I bet you wouldn't be either. But I think you're going to see more intentionality behind St. Louis. You're going to see playing out of the back and using the center backs and the wing backs that they brought in to do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that St. Louis has had more possession as this Ricky Puig is not available right now.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that really likes to hold on to the ball, move it around, distribute. And we're really missing him right now. I think a lot of people are looking at LA Galaxy right now, especially with the position on the table, and they're wondering, like, what's going on? I thought you guys had enough people there. I mean, you lost 4 players, right? But then you take into account the fact that Ricky Puig is hurt, Joseph Pinto picked up an injury also, and I'll get into it later. But in total, 7 injuries right now the Galaxy is dealing with, and that's in addition to all the players that they lost, right? During the offseason, that because of salary cap restrictions, LA Galaxy had to let some people go, unfortunately. So, and one of those players, who is Mark Delgado, was one of the people that when Ricky Puig was not available, he could easily step in there and not completely fill that role, but it added a more dynamic system to the LA Galaxy where they would distribute the ball around more instead of having one person just carry it up and down. And this really helped LA Galaxy, not just in the middle of the season, but when Puig went down MLS Cup, they had that already. They knew it could work, and it did for them, and they won the cup. Um, Before we continue, we have a super chat. Adam asks, how has Claus's performance been, and who are St. Louis outside wingbacks? I think you might have answered that already, but can you?
Yeah, a little bit. So left wing back has been Conrad Wallem, that person on loan from Slavia Prague. The first game that St. Louis played, the outside wing back was Giannis Horn on the left side. And on the right side, it has been consistent. It's Thomas Totland. Totland played the right back role in St. Louis's back four last season. He's always played a more of attacking role. St. Louis has always kind of liked to favor that right side and how they progress the ball. Thomas Totland has shown in the first couple of games that they're willing to do that again. So as the season is progressing, I'm expecting Wallem to be the left wing back, and Totland is cemented in at that right wing back spot. I would prefer not to talk about Klaus, but since you asked, the best way that I could put on how has Klaus' performance been is he dealt with injuries the past couple of years. He scored 10 goals in the first season, 5 goals last season. And the last time that Klaus scored a goal was May 11th, 2024, if that tells you anything. The last time he had an assist or a contribution was June 22nd, 2024. He just hasn't been reliable as a goal scorer or at production in general. The thing that he has provided for St. Louis is more back to goal, being able to play the ball up, winning duels, keeping the ball in the final third, and helping to create chances. Now, Klaus is probably one of the more polarizing players in the St. Louis fan base because his lack of goal scoring, his lack of direct contributions to goals, and the feel that if you're going to be having a DP number 9, he needs to be doing that role. You can ask him to do all of these other non-goal scoring things to progress the ball, to create chances for others, but ultimately we need a goal scorer. And St. Louis had a goal scoring problem in 2024, pretty personified by Klaus's performance. And this year, he's got competition. For the first time, really, you can't say that Klaus is the no-brainer starter. And in fact, he didn't start against San Diego. He started in the first game along with Simon Betcher, who Simon Betcher himself is on loan from, I think, AC Horsens is the name of the club. We expect Betcher's loan to get picked up, but Klaus and Betcher started game 1. Game 2, it was Simon Betcher and Cedric Teuchert who started up front. Teuchert's been coming back, getting fit because he went to get his green card in the offseason. He had a bit of a groin issue, and then he left the team to go to Germany to finish that process. So he got 45 minutes this past week. I would say Klaus doesn't have a locked-in position in the starting 11 right now because of that competition. That 3-4-1-2 formation allows for 2 forwards, and you're looking at 2 of either Klaus, Betcher, or Teuchert. And at this point, I didn't like what I saw from Betcher and Teuchert, so I think Klaus gets another chance against the Galaxy, but it's way too soon, and we've seen too little actual goal scoring and contribution to say that Klaus is locked and loaded every match.
You kind of answered. Well, we have another super chat from Adam. I'll get to it right now, but I was going to say you kind of answered a little bit of my next question. Now, I'm looking at Adam's question here. Adam asks, hey, guys, are Galaxy still undefeated against St. Louis in their short history? Let's table this question because we will definitely address this later on in this episode. But thank you so much, Adam. We really appreciate your contributions, your super chat, and Matt, you're going to help us answer this question as well. But before we get to that, you kind of talked about it a little bit already. But how can you gauge St. Louis's 2 scoreless draws so far this season? Because, like you said, the San Diego game was kind of strange, right? But then you had that home opener. How would you gauge these 2 matches so far?
Well, it's a team still learning to play the formation. It's a team that is not fully used to this 3 center back, wing back look, and a team that's still trying to get better at possessing the ball. The big thing that I look to if I was trying to take away something from these first two games is the team wants to play more like they played against Colorado. And that might seem obvious in looking at the stats at the end of the game. You take 18 shots against Colorado and you have 2 versus San Diego, but it's more between the lines than that. It's not just the possession numbers, not just the shots. It's just the ability to put yourself into any kind of meaningful situation to have a goal scoring opportunity. St. Louis couldn't handle the San Diego press. And when you're trying to play the ball out of the back, that's a big learning curve, is being able to create space enough that allows you to progress the ball on the ground using these wingbacks. The midfield has been a big problem with St. Louis in this regard too. So you're having your center backs pull up a little bit and trying to get into that middle third of the field to progress the ball. But the space that exists in our midfield right now is just a big problem. And one of the issues that kind of the way that manifested against San Diego is they were more willing to pass the ball back than they were taking chances to try to beat the press and potentially turn the ball over, but at least take a chance. So going back to what they did against Colorado is more a reflection of how Colorado played them than I think their ability to progress the ball out of the back. They need to work on handling the press, yes, but I don't think that's going to be, at least what I've seen from the Galaxy, a big issue this coming week. So looking at how they performed against Colorado, a team that allowed St. Louis to possess the ball, they kind of dropped back a little bit. They didn't have as dangerous of a press. They weren't as all out with their press in the final third. That gave St. Louis an opportunity to do some kind of fun things, whether it was over the top or playing the ball to the wing backs and just letting them get 1v1 out on the wide areas. That's something that I think St. Louis is going to get better at. And so playing St. Louis early in the season can be looked at from the Galaxy side, I think, as a benefit as well. They haven't shown consistency in their ability to do much of anything. They definitely haven't shown a consistent ability to score goals because they haven't yet scored a single goal in MLS play, even though they had 18 shots and like a 2 XG in the first game. Finishing's a problem, but also that consistency in getting the ball. And you haven't yet seen enough data to say, okay, this is a team that St. Louis should be successful against just because they might have done it once against Colorado.
So I see Adam's super chat, but before we get to that, because we're going into that zone right now. So actually, let me address Adam's super chat real quick. Adam, thank you so much, Adam. He asks, "Hey guys, you might have went over this already, but who are the St. Louis center backs, and who has an edge on that position between both teams?" Matt, we could go over that again in a little bit, but I want to bring something up, okay? Because you mentioned the LA Galaxy, and I saw that gleam in your eye. All right, all right, and here we go. I was watching an episode of Flyover Footy recently, and I'm just sitting there listening to you guys talk, you and Phil, and then you mentioned that St. Louis is a much better team than the LA Galaxy right now. Like, and you were very adamant, like, yeah, we're much better. And I was like, what? And then I was like, really? Is that so? Okay. Do you still feel that way heading into Sunday's match?
I do. And you kind of hit on it a little bit. It's nothing. It's not the tactics of Greg Vanney that are, disappointing to me. It's Greg Vanney's an MLS Cup winning head coach. You guys just won the cup. The tactics are sound. The quality is sus. And I don't think that you necessarily have that top quality in the first half, but you definitely, in my opinion, don't have it in the second half. The fact that now maybe it was Champions Cup and that's its own beast. Seeing your academy guys, I think I read it was one of the 4 youngest players you've ever started or had played in an MLS game come in last week in Vancouver. But, the amount of this reminds me of what St. Louis had to go through last year, where week to week around the June time period last year, St. Louis fans were checking their emails to see, all right, who are our short-term call-ups going to be this week? Because we just needed guys to fill out a roster. And it kind of gets the sense of that's where you guys are in that regard. And so seeing 3 games and seeing the quality that, Marco Royce isn't Ricky Puig. He's not going to be playmaking in that role. So you guys have danger in your final third from Peck and from Royce, but I don't know who's going to get the ball to them regularly for them to be able to do anything. We saw some better against in Champions Cup, but I liked what I saw from St. Louis against Colorado, and I think that's a better story that we're going to see, similar story that we're going to see on Sunday than what St. Louis had against San Diego. And I really like the St. Louis starting 11. I think the quality, this to me is the best quality St. Louis starting 11 that we've had in 3 years, by far. I don't think that's even a question for St. Louis, and that's what we did in the first season. We took some teams by surprise, yeah, but I think that once we get used to this system, it's going to be really good. But the players themselves, Marcel Hartl, Cedric Toyshirt, Klaus or Betcher, Edu Leuven, Chris Durkin, the wingbacks. I mean, this is the most complete team that we've had, and we're actually fairly deep. We've got guys that can change the game by Celio Pompeu in the second half. Look for him to be a dribbling fool because he's one of our best players on the ball, and he's fast, and he will stretch the field. Different looks in the second half that I think if you look top to bottom, the top 15 guys on each team, of the healthy players right now, I think St. Louis does have the clear advantage.
So let's address that question by Adam right here. Who are the St. Louis center backs, and who has an edge on that position between both teams? LA Galaxy, we have we have Maya Yoshida. Well, Garces is out right now, so we might see Eric Zavaleta this weekend. We don't know. We haven't seen that guy in a while. And then, of course, we have Zanka, who came over from Belgium. How do these guys compare to the St. Louis center backs, in your opinion?
The only guy's name that you mentioned I know is Yoshida. I admittedly do not know the other guys, but I know Yoshida's quality. So I will say that I am confident in the St. Louis center backs. And if there's one thing that I am positive about through 2 games, so I mentioned how I don't like what our offense has been doing. Our defense has played the best 2-game stretch that St. Louis City has ever played in our 2+ years. We had the single best defensive performance by XG and shot measures in that game against Colorado that we've ever had. It's been a fantastic first viewing of an Olaf Melberg defensive performance. Now we need to figure out how to translate that into scoring goals, absolutely, because I can say that we have the best quality players, but admittedly, we haven't scored a single goal. So they're not doing something right. But defensively, I think St. Louis is very sound. They withstood the San Diego press. They withstood all those shots that they had. And Henry Kessler, in particular, who's been playing our central center back role, has been robbed, in my opinion, of a player of the match day appearance in the first 2 weeks. He has anchored this back line, and he's, I think, the only player in the top 6 of block shots and clearances to not be named on the team of the match day. It's travesty for me to not see him there, but his performance so far has been MVP quality for this team through 2 games where the team hasn't scored a goal. He is one of the primary reasons that we have not let up a goal and why we have absorbed all of this pressure from San Diego without really any true danger from them in scoring a goal.
Listening to you talk about the scoreless draws and how excited you were about the defense reminds me of like baseball purists talking, with this.
That's fair.
So much excitement about like a 1-0 victory by a pitcher over like 12 innings or something. Like, oh, did you see that? What a
That's fair.
Reminds me of like the Jack Morris game in the 91. Was it not? Yeah, the 91 World Series. I mean, that was a classic. I mean, what a ball game. If you know, you know. I mean, if you saw that 91 World Series, the Twins won. Jack Morris pitched 12 innings, I think, of shutout baseball. Oh my God, that's crazy. You won't see that anymore in baseball.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah, that's a deep cut. Yeah. So let's get into the availability report. I'll let you go first since ours is pretty bad, but just to let you have that first shot. You're a visitor, so go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, we're trending up. St. Louis hasn't had major injury concerns. We've had some guys who weren't quite fit to start the season. If you look at match day 2's injury report for St. Louis, it's going to look fairly similar to that. Rasmus Alm, who's like a second striker, right winger, is going to be out. Joachim Nilsson, one of our center backs, and arguably our top center back over the past couple of years, arguably with Tim Parker. He's not going to play either. He's had a knee issue, suffered a bone bruise against San Jose at the end of preseason. Beyond that, it's depth mostly. Jacob Reich, one of our U22s, is out. He's got a couple weeks till he recovers from an ankle injury, and we've got another left back who had surgery on his foot, Jay Reed. Chris Durkin and Cedric Toyshirt, who had been some of those guys ramping up. Chris Durkin, central midfielder, plays the 6 role, usually 6 or an 8. He's one of our U22s. He's healthy now, and he played 45 this past week. Similarly, Cedric Toyshirt, arguably our best attacker, played 45 as well. And I mentioned he's fit. He's getting his fitness back. He's healthy. He just missed some time in preseason due to his green card work. Other than that, no new injuries for St. Louis. So happy with where our team is overall right now.
Hopefully for you guys, you don't get like a surprise injury right before the game starts, like last season.
Come on. Knock on wood on that one.
Well, on our side, it looks like one of those Civil War camps, man, where like they're bringing in the walking wounded and throwing them into a triage tent. I mean, the big one obviously is Ricky Puig. Ricky Puig had the knee surgery. He's going to be out until sometime mid to late July. I mean, maybe earlier, but I wouldn't want to rush somebody back from an injury like that. Surgery. He's young. He's got a great long career ahead of him, so no reason to rush him back. Joseph Pinto is also out. Mauricio Cuevas, midfielder, also out. Miki Yamane, one of our wingbacks, also out. Lucas Sanabria, the guy who was brought in from Uruguay, from Club Nacional, to try to fill in that role for Ricky Puig. He suffered a fractured collarbone over the last weekend in Vancouver, so he's out for at least 2 to 3 months. Carlos Emiro Garces, one of our greatest pickups last season, solid center back. He has a calf injury. No word on whether or not he'll be available this weekend. We'll know by tomorrow when the availability report by MLS is actually released. And of course, one of the newest members of the LA Galaxy, Mateus Nascimento, who came over from Brazil. He actually is nursing, I think it's a groin injury. No word on whether he'll be available for this match, but from what I heard, the rumor mill is that Joseph Pinto might be back soon, maybe Miki Yamane, and maybe even Nascimento. We might see those 3 guys back this weekend. We'll know in about a few hours from now when MLS releases that availability report. But yeah, this report I just gave you, this is as of yesterday, before that match against Herediano. So Galaxy fans, I told you guys many times before, steel yourselves because it's going to be a very long season. But in MLS, you have to be really, really bad not to make the playoffs. It's still a long season, and it's got a marathon season to go. So keep your heads up, right? Keep your chin up. So let's go back to a question that Adam had asked, which was, "Hey guys, are Galaxy still undefeated against St. Louis in their short history?" And this is where we get into the all-time record between these teams. These teams have faced each other only 4 times. Galaxy has yet to win a match. Before that, there was 3 draws, and then most recently there was a loss to St. Louis City. So St. Louis drew first blood. The last time, in fact, that these 2 teams faced each other was on a very hot, very muggy, not very German-friendly afternoon encounter in St. Louis on September 1st, 2024. And trust me, I've lived in the Midwest in that time of the year, and it's pretty bad. It was a 2-1 win for St. Louis City. So, hey, you want to address that question as well, Matt? Have your take?
I felt that every match that St. Louis and the Galaxy have played have always been pretty tight. The draws are funny in that how they worked out: the 1-1, then 2-2, then 3-3, and then St. Louis finally pulling it out at home last year. But that was actually, so while the style is probably not what you're going to see this weekend, the goal scorers very well could be, because the issue with St. Louis last year, night and day versus from the first 2/3 of the season versus the last third, when the Cedric Toyshirt, Marcel Hartl, Giannis Horn, etc. came on board. The 2 goal scorers in that game against the Galaxy were Toyshirt and Hartl. And it really, emphasize the quality that St. Louis gained in the final third that we just didn't have before that earlier in the season that led us to missing the playoffs, being a bad team that you described like that. And I think that's what we have now this weekend is we have those higher quality players. They just need to figure out things like spacing, things like timing, cohesiveness in this formation and what Olaf is trying to instill. So there's a little bit of that at play, but the pure quality, I think that can be carried over from what this last matchup on September 1st was with St. Louis and the Galaxy.
Oh, and then we have Adam. Well, another super chat. This is Edgar. Are you sure Garces is out Sunday? He played yesterday. I was at the Deftones show. So if he's back, he's back. Brian, can you confirm that? Because like I said, I was in a mosh pit, man. Well, if he's back, then hell yeah, we'll have him back on Sunday. That means scratch one guy off that list then. Let's see. Well, thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate it. Let's see right here. Let's get into the ref report because I bring it up all the time. People are saying, ask me, Edgar, why do you bring up the ref report? Because it's like it's really like reading tea leaves. I told everybody, in the last match where we had Drew Fisher in that match against Vancouver, Drew Fisher hates the LA Galaxy. I'm sorry, he does. In 19 matches all time, Matt, can you guess how many games the LA Galaxy has won with Drew Fisher at the whistle?
Probably not double digits.
3.
Yikes.
3, yeah. So when they lost to Vancouver, I was surprised. A lot of people were upset. Like, how dare you? There was one blown call in that match.
It was a big one, though.
Yeah, against Sanabria. It should have been a red card. He missed it. The MLS disciplinary committee came back, and they awarded a fine to Vancouver for that foul. Should have been a red. Vancouver should have been a man down, which completely would have changed the whole aspect of that match. But it is what it is. Drew Fisher was also, by the way, I know we should focus on the next thing, but just to put a cap on this, Fisher was also the ref who handled that match between Galaxy and Seattle in the Western Conference Final. This is the match where the Seattle players beat the hell out of Ricky Puig to the point where he ended up injured. And there weren't that many calls against Seattle for that kind of stuff. So, hey, well, let's get into it then. Here we go. For this match, all right, Matt. The pro ref assignment is Jair Marufo is going to be the main referee. Marufo, who is a FIFA sanctioned referee, he worked in World Cup 2018. Since 2002, so this guy's been there for a while. He has refereed 309 MLS regular season matches, 56 total with LA Galaxy, which is far more than any other MLS club. I think the next one was like 47 for like New York Red Bulls. Well, in those 56 total matches, 28 wins for LA Galaxy, 13 draws, 15 losses, including a home record for Galaxy of 20 wins, 7 draws, and only 3 losses. He has only refereed one St. Louis City SC match, which is a loss at home. Marufo's last regular season LA Galaxy match was a 4-2 win over Vancouver Whitecaps on September 21st, 2024, where he handed out 3 yellow cards to Vancouver. Marufo's only St. Louis City SC match was a 2-0 loss to Seattle Sounders at home on October 21st, 2023. He handed 1 yellow to St. Louis and 6 to Seattle. This is going to be Marufo's first MLS match of 2025. In 13 matches during the 2024 regular season, he handed out 40 yellows for an average of 3.08 per game. He only handed out 2 red cards, which were actually second yellows, and he awarded 4 penalty kicks. So, Matt, I'll let you have first crack at this. Hearing this, how do you feel about the referee heading into this match? Does that affect your thinking of how things are going to get handled?
And I usually try not to think about the ref doing too much to control the game, but it does seem like if you were going to view this as let him play versus he's going to keep it tight, it kind of seems like that's a hefty amount of yellow cards to be handing out. You mentioned the 7 in the City Sounders game from a couple of years ago. It looks like he gives a lot of yellows to the opposition. If I'm looking at this correctly, in every game that he's had in the past 2 years, there's only one game where he has not given out a yellow card. So he seems like this seems like a game where he's going to try to keep it tight, call close fouls, and it wouldn't surprise me if St. Louis picked up 2 or 3 yellow cards at least. I think this last game against San Diego we had like 5. So we are still an aggressive team, St. Louis is, and it wouldn't surprise me if we pick up quite a few yellows in this game.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of Galaxy fans, they'll hear certain referee names, and for one reason or other, their knee jerk reaction is to say, "Oh, I hate this guy. He's really bad for our team." And I told people, there's only one name you should fear, and that's Drew Fisher, right? But other than that, most of the refs are pretty, I think, are okay as far when you look at the overall records. And in the past, you'll say Marufo's name at the Dignity Health Sports Park, and people will start cursing. And I'm like, hey, take it easy. This guy ain't so bad for us. I think that, I mean, granted, LA Galaxy is really hurting right now. I think they need any advantage they can have at this point, heading into this match. So I think it's a little more favorable than having someone like Fisher in charge. Um, Predictions, Matt. Let's get into this. Predictions. You've had 2 scoreless draws so far this season. Galaxy and City have had 3 score. I mean, they've had 3 draws already, right? We talked about how like they were incrementing in score until finally City won the match. So, what are you expecting for this game? You were adamant saying City's a much better team right now. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's hear it.
I'll bring forward my prediction from Flyover Footy. I had St. Louis winning 1-0. I don't know how the Galaxy are going to come out because they're at home, yeah, and you should win a home game in MLS. But with all the issues you guys have had, riding a 3-game losing streak, this is your 3rd of 5 matches in 20 days that I counted. I mean, that's a lot to go through with a depleted roster for you guys. St. Louis hasn't scored a goal yet, so I found it difficult to think that we would score many goals until I see it. And so I'd be happy with a goal, and I would be thrilled if we found a way to get 3 points out of it. But I got to ride our defense. 2 clean sheets in a row, and it hasn't particularly been close in that regard. St. Louis has played tremendous defense. I haven't watched every MLS game this year, but I've been very impressed with our ability to play defense, and it's had to have been top of the league. I think we can continue that against a Galaxy team that I don't know where you guys are going to find a ton of offense from, especially after coming off a midweek match. I like our chances, but I always hate being. I realize I'm sounding really optimistic, and I don't want to sound like a pompous ass on this, but I really do like the quality. I like the quality St. Louis brings into this. There you go. And I'm borderline desperate for an away win early in the season based on the fact that St. Louis went almost the entire season last year without getting a win on the road. So I'm desperate for that this year, and I think this may be the best chance St. Louis has all season to get an away win.
And you know what's interesting? You brought that up, that getting that away win, right? Especially against LA Galaxy team, where this team did not lose a single home game at Dignity Health Sports Park last season. And man, it was like a shot to the gut losing to San Diego and that first match of the season. A match that a lot of people, it was very sobering, right? There was all the pomp and circumstance that came with winning the cup and the celebration before the match. That was all nice and pretty, but at the end, you still had to present something on the field. And this LA Galaxy team is, with so many people missing at that time and so many changes, they are nowhere near being like a complete thing right now. It's like a very weird, shapeless, amorphous creature that's still trying to find whatever shape it can. Thank goodness for John Nelson, though. And I bring this up again because that's my boy, John Nelson, The Rock. We call him The Rock. When I was at the Coachella Valley Invitational, it was a group of girls, like literally a group of girls, like all wearing John Nelson kits. And every time he ran by, they were like, Nelly, Nelly. So I never heard that one before. Yeah.
Was this his family?
I don't know, but I just thought it was funny because Nelly, the rapper, is from St. Louis too. So I was like, what, Nelly? That's funny.
No, I love the fact that John Nelson's found success. We were joking on Flyover that I don't view this as like a revenge type match for him because he's more than a year removed from playing for St. Louis. But I think John Nelson won when you're talking about the breakup between St. Louis and John Nelson, because St. Louis ended up firing our head coach halfway through the next season. John Nelson went on to start at left back for the MLS Cup champions. I'd say kudos to him.
And I don't know if you saw during the regular season, I think it might have been the playoffs too, but he scored one banger of a goal.
Yeah.
My God, he came up on the attack, and I was at that game, and we're like, "Hey, what the heck is John Nelson doing up so high?" And then he gets the ball, he looks up, and he just scored this amazing goal, and everybody's like, "Whoa, we didn't know you had it in you, dude." Thank you. But anyway, notwithstanding all that, yeah, it's. I told Galaxy fans at the end of last season, enjoy the cup, enjoy every single moment of this, because winning an MLS Cup, and I know it's kind of strange to hear from a team that's won so many times, but I feel like every single one was its own story, its own endeavor, and each one means something different. This one, to a lot of people, meant a lot more, I think, than some of the previous ones, um, because of the fan protest that led to the dismissal of Chris Klein and Jovan Karofsky, two people that were kind of like a stigma to the club over the last 10 years, the way they mismanaged the club. Yeah, they brought in some big names, but there was nothing else of substance there to say this team was competitive but could compete for cups. You bring in a general manager that's hungry to prove himself and has an idea of how to bring about success for this club. And you saw what happened in such a short period of time, where I keep telling people this club was in the middle of a rebuild and they went way ahead of the curve and they won the cup. Um, I told people, enjoy this, savor it, because number one, winning a cup is very difficult. The fans fueled this championship, and also MLS makes it incredibly difficult to maintain success. Where I feel, I was thinking about it earlier today, I feel like in MLS, it's almost better to be lucky than to be successful. Because if you're lucky and you're a decent team, you're not a fantastic team, but you're a decent team and you're lucky and you go and you find a championship, whether it's the Open Cup, MLS Cup or Leagues Cup, and you win, that's good for you. And you have something you can hang your hat on. But if you're a really good team and you find success, MLS will punish you. They will come in and they will gut you. And I've seen it from the very beginning of this league with DC United, where they gutted that team to the point where they're no longer relevant.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I told people, hopefully, LA Galaxy will turn things around. But for this first half of the season, you gotta be patient, temper your expectations. Heading into this match against St. Louis, I can see Galaxy losing that match 1-0, but I also think that they got a goal in them. So I'm gonna say St. Louis with a 2-1 win. Like you said, I think they're a more complete team right now. This is nothing against what LA Galaxy has done, but like you said, the travel, having to play so many matches in such a short period of time, the injuries, all that stuff piles up on you. If you follow wrestling, it's almost like LA Galaxy's Cody Rhodes and John Cena just turned heel on you, and The Rock and this other guy are just beating the hell out of you in the ring, right? And all these things just pile up on you, and you're the champ, but you don't look like a champ right now, right? You're this bloody mess lying there on the ground for people to just come over and kick. So maybe it's time for St. Louis to get that first away victory, right?
You never know. I maintain that this isn't necessarily about quality versus quality, because I think, at home an MLS team can overcome not having their quality players. To me, this is going to be the home dynamic for the Galaxy versus can St. Louis finally figure out how to score a goal in this new system that they have, because they haven't shown it yet. So of the confidence that I have, it's that there's going to be a game where St. Louis figures it out offensively. They figure out how to score a goal. They look cohesive in their attack. I don't know if it's going to come this week, next week, or the following week, but if St. Louis doesn't win this game, it's going to be a really rocky road ahead, because we have Seattle and Philadelphia waiting for us after you guys.
Oof. Yeah, there's two things on my mind as they went through my mind as you were saying all this, was that um, Yeah, Carlos Garces is actually back. He did play yesterday. I confirmed it. He's a very important part of the Galaxy defense, especially at center back. He lines up against alongside Maya Yoshida. If you haven't seen this guy yet, Matt, this guy he's scary good. He's very strong, very quick. He's fearless. He's like one of those center backs that you're afraid to run into because he will floor you on a 50-50 shoulder to shoulder challenge. And he's very good, very accurate. He's the guy who took John. Oh my God. My God, he went to Montreal. I'm so sorry. He took Jalen Neal's job. Jalen Neal is somebody who's very beloved by the Galaxy community. He grew, came up in the academy system, and we saw him as somebody who's going to be very important to this team's success in the future. He suffered some injuries in 2023, never really got back to that same form again. Suffered a few setbacks last season, but we never expected him to get traded away, and then he's gone. But we look at what we have left, and we have a very solid center back in Carlos Garces. So keep an eye on him. He's really good. Now, with him back there, I feel like LA Galaxy's defense will be bolstered. But here's the problem. Who's going to score the goals for LA Galaxy? Because losing Ediano Velic, losing Mark Delgado, not having Ricky Puig, Joseph Painsel's still out. Gabriel Peck is mostly on an island out there. Marco Royce is like in some moments he shows some of that brilliance that we're used to seeing from him from his years in the Bundesliga. But then other times he looks completely disconnected, like he's just going through the motions. And it's kind of troubling to me because in the offseason, there's a video of him floating around where he expresses disgust at how MLS is set up, where they'll tear down a team for winning. And he said that he actually says this is really stupid. I don't like it. Maya Yoshida, the Galaxy captain, came out in the LA Times saying that the system, and I hate to bring it up, but he said it was bullshit the way MLS is set up. That's his words, not mine. All right, and so these guys got a chip on their shoulder, and I'm sure he's not happy right now. He lost some of his teammates that they won a championship, and the team is depleted. And he's out there like, yeah, I really don't have much help, right? So, um, who's gonna score goals for the Galaxy? Christian Ramirez still trying to figure things out. Miguel Barry ain't gonna do it for 90 minutes. Um, Gabriel Peck needs service to do well. That's what worries me. This is why I'm not saying LA Galaxy is gonna go out there and shock everybody by getting a good solid victory at home because they can't score goals. So that means everything falls back. Like you say, St. Louis is more possession minded now. So they're gonna dictate the flow of the match. And if they chip and take shots at that Galaxy defense, they will eventually find a crack and they will find a way to score a goal. So that's what I'm saying. 2-1 St. Louis victory for this match. Any final words, Matt?
I'm excited to see St. Louis and Galaxy. It's always an exciting match, no matter what happens. And I want to see this new City 2.0, as our head coach and sporting director call it. I want to see that team go against the Galaxy. It's kind of like a preview also for me for later this season when hopefully you guys are healthier and there's more quality on both sides. I'm excited to go see what we have in LA this week.
I'm curious to know if that second match is going to be played also like sometime in the middle of the late summer, early fall on an afternoon in St. Louis when you know
We always play
you
on
know.
Sunday afternoons for some reason. I think that
Oh
seems like a
God,
staple.
yeah. But you hear the cicadas off in the distance, and you can smell everyone as soon as you walk into a room. If you never experienced that kind of a humidity, you haven't really lived. Um, But you know what? Hey, Matt, thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate having you on here. For anybody that's an MLS sicko like I am, and you want to hear some really good MLS content, please watch Flyover Footy. You can watch them, you can listen to them. It's Matt, it's Phil Grooms, and our good buddy Santi. We're gonna have on here one day, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Matt is one of the better MLS fan media content creators out there. I could tell you just because I talked to so many different people from across the league, and I really appreciate all the work that you put in with St. Louis City and for helping elevate our league, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Too kind. I appreciate it. Always a blast to join you on here, and I'm just happy to be a part of the MLS family content creators we have, because it's fun to come on these shows, come on with you and with everybody else. It's just a blast.
Well, tell anybody out there who's listening, whether it's LA Galaxy or St. Louis or other MLS sickos that are on right now, or or catches that are on, where they could find you on socials and where they could find Flyover Footy.
For me, it's Instagram, X, Blue Sky, at Matt Baker STL. Very, very easy, Matt Baker STL. And then our podcast, Flyover Footy, at Flyover Footy. Give us a download, a subscribe or anything on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We do recap shows on Sunday mornings, or at least the day after match day. We do our regular previews Thursday night. And then I try to get a midweek pod out where, news from training, an interview with players, coach. So we're pretty consistent week in and week out on Flyover Footy. It's pretty exciting.
Well, for anybody who doesn't know, you can find me also on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram as Edgar Nags. You can find us, News Across the Galaxy, on Twitter as Nag News. Also on YouTube channel as well. Instagram also. You can find us everywhere. And we're coming to Blue Sky soon. But for Matt, for Bryant, from the rest of the News Across the Galaxy cast, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to a very exciting match this weekend. Matt, we really wish you were here, man, because we would lavish you with pupusas and all kinds of yummy food out here, man. It would be fantastic. We would roll out the red carpet for you. We would pay for Cosmo, the Galaxy mascot, to give you a lap dance. I mean, it would be fantastic,
I should have planned it better. I was in San Diego last week to see the game. One of these days, I'll make the trip to LA.
Yeah, dude, you're always welcome to come up here, even if it isn't a St. Louis match. Just let us know.
There you go.
All right, well, everyone, thank you so much again. As always, keep on nagging. And I just scored some tickets to see Wu-Tang, baby. Wu-Tang for life. Let's go.